the teacher. Hello, teacher.
Hi, Liliana. How are you?
Fine, thank you, teacher. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. My name is David Mortegui. I am an English teacher. I got graduated from Universidad Pedagógica in 2007, and I'm now living and working in Brazil as an English teacher too.
Nice, teacher. Okay, next, I want to ask you some questions about the topic of language and culture. The
Perfect.
first question is, what do you think is the relationship between language and culture?
Well, culture is expressed through language. So all the traditions, all the customs, all songs and things that make part of the culture, they are learned through language. So there is a close relationship between language and the way that we, as teachers, teach the culture, and the way as students learn the culture through the language. So there is a very close relationship between both.
Okay, teacher, thank you. The next question is, what is the influence of culture in the process of foreign language learning?
I guess that it makes learning more meaningful. If you think about the way that teachers go through some content inside the classroom, and the moment that they teach some special cultural elements from the language, that makes everything that you're using in the classroom a lot more meaningful for the students. They can learn of course all the structures and vocabulary that you're teaching in a better way. They can use it a lot better when they start using the language. So I'm sure that that the culture, the influence of the culture is it makes the learning much more meaningful.
Okay, teacher, thank you. The next question is, which cultural expressions do you know countries have through language?
Through language, I guess that literature, music, and oral tradition. Those are all different cultural expressions that are more related to language. Of course, you can have art that would be, I don't know, something more visual. But in the case of language, literature and music and oral traditions, I guess, are the most important.
Thank you, teacher. The next question is, why do you think it is important to have an oral tradition in countries, in a country?
Uh, in a country, I look the language. If we think about how language is learned, the language is learned through oral communication. Children, they get all the basic concepts of the structure of the grammar before they go to school. So their parents are always telling them stories. The I don't know, grandparents, family members, they share that teaching moment with them by oral tradition. So I'm sure that without the oral tradition, it would be much more difficult to teach something meaningful to a person.
Okay, teacher. Thank you very much. The next question is, what do you think? Do we teach language using culture or do we teach culture using language?
Um, as I told you before, there is a strong relationship between culture and language. So I guess that inside the classroom is very important that we use both at the same time. Of course, there is going to be a moment, especially when you're teaching a second language, when you need first to teach the code, to teach the grammar, the structures, so the students can communicate a little bit better with you. But you teach the culture using the language, and you teach the language using cultural elements from the language that you're teaching. So you use both at the same time.
Yes, teacher, I agree. Okay, the next question is, do you take into account culture in the strategies you use in your English classes?
Yes, I teach using scenes from movies that they can show how people in certain countries using English in certain English-speaking countries um, they act. Okay, the way that they act in the place. So I use the scene from movies. I use short videos. I use songs because songs there are many songs that you can share with the students where they can actually see some differences with the culture that they live in and the culture from the language they're learning. In my personal case, when I was learning Portuguese before moving here, I remember many moments in the classroom when my teacher was using songs that were teaching cultural elements from the people around here. And when I moved here, I saw those things from the material that teacher taught me. So I tried to use as well songs and some things, some texts that talk about traditions and that share the values that people have in the different English speaking countries.
Oh, interesting, teacher. Could you use, for example, a recipe of food to, for example, how to cook a specific recipe from the country?
Yes, that is actually a very good example. I didn't think about that before. I guess that uh, teaching a person, I mean, yeah, teaching a recipe
Yes.
first is exploring vocabulary, is exploring different kind of structures, countables and countables, directions, and then you're teaching something that is meaningful in the place where in the place that you choose. Okay, so yes, teaching a recipe can be a great example. When you teach about traditions from one country and your country, for example, you can teach comparatives and superlatives. You can show those differences that the traditions you have in your country and the traditions that I don't know people in the United States have, or in Australia, or in any other English-speaking country.
Okay, teacher. That's all, teacher. Now I just give you a lot of thank you for your
Okay.
collaboration.
Okay. Sure.
And no more. That's
Okay.
all. Bye, teacher. Thank
Thank you
you.
very
See
much for
you.
inviting me. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.